What's the difference between Mac and Maybelline or any brand you are obsessed with? It's not the ingredients, it's the customer. Both brands are widely successful, but their branding, positioning, even where they're sold, are completely different. And here's the part that nobody tells you. Big brands don't build by accident. They don't guess. They don't rely on trial and error. They use strategy, they use data, and they use precision. And if you don't know your numbers, you truly don't know your customer. Welcome to Build an Obsession Brand, the podcast where we break down the science behind brand building so you can compete with the big brands and turn your beloved product into a household name. Let's dive in. Let me tell you something that's shaped how I think about branding. Growing up, I used to be the quiet one. I come from a culture where kids are to be seen and not heard. What that means is you literally cannot question anybody of authority. Not your teachers, not your parents, especially your father. Nobody. What they say is considered probably the gospel truth. By virtue of this, I ended up being the most reserved one. I ended up becoming the person who only speaks when I have something important to say. I ended up becoming the person who doesn't piggyback off what somebody said. And there are definitely pros and cons to that. And down the line, I ended up taking the identity of, I'm the quiet one. How true that is, I do not know. Fast forward, I relocate to the US. And the US, I came here for school. The culture is completely different. Kids here are taught to be confident, to speak up their mind, to share something, to literally voice their opinions. It just becomes who they are. And everywhere you go, you notice that. In school, they answer questions, even if they're just piggybacking off what the professor said. At work, at a meeting, their voices are definitely heard. Unlike me, who waits to speak up when there's something of value to say, who waits to try and find something new and different, versus just saying the same thing, but using a different vocabulary, right? If you're like me, you probably know and understand what I'm saying. And something interesting about that is that it taught me the power of identity and the power of how you show up, right? Because if you speak up when you have something to say, you will probably not open your mouth all the time because it's not all the time that you have a new and ingenious idea. But if you open your mouth as frequently as possible, you'll be the loudest in the room. You'll be heard, you'll be noticed. But this is the thing I've learned. Sometimes being quiet has its power. Something I'm now calling quiet confidence. And that quiet confidence means you're very intentional. You're intentional with what you say, you're intentional with how you say it, you're intentional in what rooms you are in, you're literally intentional with everything. And that presence is what I find magnetic because I view it as quiet confidence. You're not dumb. That's just how you roll. You open your mouth when you have something valuable to say. You ask thought-provoking questions. You're just very thorough. That is something that is very powerful to embody. And if you have that type of personality, don't shy away. Don't be worried about it. Don't think negative of yourself. It's just who you are. And to me, I view it as quiet confidence. And one thing I know, being in branding, being a strategist with so many big brands, is the fact that the most powerful brands are definitely not the loudest. Sometimes the loudest brands really are not even that good. You end up buying because of the power of the brand. or you end up buying because that's what you know of. But does that really mean that it's the greatest product? In my opinion, I don't think so. Sometimes I feel like the greatest products are the best kept secret. The greatest products are the ones that have the quiet confidence that I was talking about. Very powerful, very intentional, very strategic, very potent in who they are and in what they have. And why am I saying this? Why am I talking about this? It's because as I do my makeup today, the number one question I constantly get is, how do I stand out? How do I break through into the category and not blend in? And I was like, what is the best way to actually depict this and to show this is to actually do my makeup and literally bring to the forefront some of the products that you probably have and talk about the differences and talk about what really makes them magnetic, what really makes them powerful. And one of the questions I sometimes hear is, truly, what is the difference between Mac and Maybelline? Truly, what is the difference between Mac and Maybelline? And here's the thing. When somebody asks me, what is the most powerful way to stand out? I'm just going to tell you this. That is actually the wrong question to ask me. The right question to ask me is, do you know who you're standing in front of? Are you standing in front of the right person? Is your brand present in rooms and in spaces where your person would see you, would notice you, would feel you? Do you even know who you're standing in front of? When we talk about Mac and Maybelline, it's the same category, right? Beauty and wellness category. Potentially, it could be the same formulation. I do not know. I'm not behind the scenes to figure that out. Maybe it's the same ingredients. I do not know how accurate that is. But these two products are basically lipsticks, right? They're basically lipsticks that will be used to add some color to your lips and accentuate your look depending on how you want to feel that day. So think about it. Same industry, same function. But here's the thing. They're not selling the same thing. Let's break this down. Mac is for the baddie that's very bold. Mac is for the baddie who wants to be seen when they walk into a room. Mac is for the baddie who doesn't want to blend in. She's expressive. She definitely wants to be seen. Mac is artistry, it's legacy, and it's literally built off professional credibility. Think about how their marketing comes across. It's a lot of makeup artists. It's a lot of people who tend to put bold colors. That's how they show up. Maybelline, on the other hand, in my opinion, and truly how they've positioned themselves, is it's accessible glam, right? It's everyday look. It's pretty. It's effortless. You honestly don't need to do too much with Maybelline. It's also accessible. Think about the distribution of Maybelline. You can find it at a local drugstore, your CVS. You can find it at Target. It's literally accessible. The Mac brand definitely has its own store. So inside the mall, it's not at Sephora for sure. You'll find it at Ulta. You'll find it at the airport where they have their own Mac station. Really, it's expressive, it's bold. It's a brand for the person who wants to be seen. And that's how they have positioned themselves from a promotional standpoint, product standpoint, marketing standpoint, everything. It is their identity. And both brands are showing up very differently. So when you compare them head to head, you're not comparing the product. Do you know what you're comparing? You're comparing the identity. That is what you're comparing. And if you are in the beauty industry, You're probably seeing this, you're feeling this, you're sleeping on this every single a day, on the fact that it is saturated, it is competitive. Brands are launching products every now and then. Could be a new product, new innovation. Some other times it's just probably a line extension, an addition to what is already existing with a new color. And that saturation as a founder could be very paralyzing, could make you wonder, do I really have room in this market? Is there space for me? But here are the stats. The beauty category is expected to grow 5.8% in CAGR. Its CAGR is 5.8% by 2028. So the space is crowded, and it is going to continue being crowded. That's not new and should not be very scary. So what will separate the winners in this space? What will separate the brands that actually do well in this space and in the trend and in the trend that the category is showing? It's going to be heavy reliance on decoding your customer data and knowing your customer. So literally decoding your data, knowing your customer, and building off messaging and marketing campaigns that is built off that data. And what I want to make sure every founder understands is this: do not look at what another brand is doing. I want you to obsess over what your customer is telling you. Look into your data, lean into your data. Look into the purchasing behavior, look into the shopping behavior, look into how they're navigating your website, look into what they're telling you. Obsess over what your customer is telling you rather than obsessing over what other brands are doing. You do not need to know what another brand is doing, because what another brand is doing is based off what their customer is telling them. Humans are unique. We're all different. How we buy, how we think, the psychology is completely different. And your brand has its own ethos. And because it has its own ethos, look at how your customer is behaving. Maybelline and Mac know who their customer is. I can tell you that for a fact. I know how the big brands operate. I know what we obsess over. I know how performance metrics is such a hot topic. I know, especially as a brand manager, especially as somebody who's leading a brand, knowing your data, knowing how your customer is behaving is pretty much what we're challenged upon. So Maybelline and Mac, they've studied their customer. They've watched the SKUs they buy. They've watched the colors they select. They know what promotions make them tick at what point in time. They know what shade makes them click. And they're building messaging off what the data is telling them. So if you do not know your customer, my friend, you are building in the dark. I'm going to tell you that. If you do not know your customer and you do not know your data, if you're not able to decode your data, if you're not able to know your customer, what they're telling you, if you're not able to figure out what this message means and interpret it and infer, you're building in the dark. And my recommendation would be look at what your customer is telling you rather than looking at what your competitors or other brands are doing. And here's the reason why I personally know and believe that data will be the differentiation for a lot of brands is, so for example, let's do a case study. You're a founder who has decided to launch a new product. You've decided to launch a new product that is a coral lip tinted oil. You launch a coral one and you launch a berry shade. During launch, The first time you launch the two products, the berry one sells out like crazy. So you probably decided you're going to launch this at the beginning of the year. You still haven't decided to make it a permanent SKU, a 52-week permanent item. So you decide that you are going to launch this again in the spring. Same shade, you haven't changed anything. You have a berry shade and a coral shade. In that process, you quickly realize that, hey, the berry shade sells out again. And the coral one is still not moving. This is the thing. That is just not product insight. It's actually customer insight. It's the customer psychology that is being revealed to you. And what exactly is being revealed to you? Your customer probably wants the earth-toned shades, the cool-toned shades, prefers maybe fall colors. That tells you something about who they are, how they show up, their behavior, their energy. She definitely wants something that is more poppy and something that just doesn't blend in like the coral shade. She wants to resonate with that deep mood shade. She wants to resonate with that depth and not the beach, summer shade, the boho shade, the light aesthetics. That insight, that messaging in and of itself is gold. That should inform your marketing campaign, how you show up. That should inform how you speak to them. That should inform your next product drop. It already tells you the color palette that you can gravitate towards. It literally informs your entire energy. This is how Mac and Maybelline win. This is how you would win. So many people ask me, what data? In this case, I literally used product sellout data. It'll tell you. It'll show you. All you need to do is infer and look deeper. This is how Mac and Maybelline are winning. This is how industry giants are winning. This is how category leaders are winning. They're not guessing. They're literally responding to data. They're literally responding to data that is hidden inside their brand. Because one of my biggest philosophies and one of my biggest premise is every brand building answer that you are looking for in this very moment is hidden inside your customer data. Look at everything. Want to know the next thing that will sell out? Look at your customer purchasing data. Want to know the messaging that resonates? Look at your email list, what people respond. Look at the campaigns that tend to have better traction. Look at all of that. That is where all the answers that you are seeking to find are hidden. They're hidden in the customer data. They're hidden in all those behavioral insights. So if you're building a brand right now, this is the thing. Please hear me when I say this. You do not need to worry about standing out. All you need to make sure is you're standing in front of the right person. You just need to know your customer better than anyone else. And that starts with your numbers, not just vibes, not just values, but real purchasing behavior. That is how you stand out. So, in this very moment, who's your customer? In this very moment, who's your customer and what are they telling you? What is your customer telling you? Because even as I wrap up this makeup look, I'm using both products. I'm using Mac and I'm using Maybelline. Definitely using the Mac lip liner, the Chestnut by Mac. Absolutely. I'm using this. I am using the Maybelline Super Stay matte ink just to see if I can do an ombre. And I'll finish it off with the ruby wool. Because look, I can wear both of them, but I'll buy each one of them based on how they make me feel. And that's exactly how your customer shops. Literally, that's exactly how your customer shops. So in essence, you don't need everyone to hear you. You just need the right person to feel you. And with that, what's the real difference between Mac and Maybelline? It's their customer. 2 looks, 2 brands, different identity, different magnetism. And with that, it's a wrap for this episode. Go into your brand, look at what they're telling you, and design a strategy that fits that box. I break down all these insights inside my brand growth journal, which is a newsletter that I send out to my people. I'm reviving my love for writing. All my friends know I love to journal. I was like, why not journal my thoughts? Why not journal the things that I see in the category? And so I'm doing this in the email list. So click the link down the description box and subscribe and come on in and listen in. It's not what I post on social. It's all behind the scenes. So if you want the full picture, join me there. Talk soon, my friend. Bye. That's a wrap on Build an Obsession brand. If you're relying on passion alone to grow your brand, you're flying blind because real success takes strategy. If today's episode hit home, share it with another brand builder who needs to hear this. My mission, helping emerging brands get the right recipe for success. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on Instagram at Maureen Mwangi Official. Until next time, build with precision because big brands aren't built by accident.
And the thing that okay.